I want to talk to you about this degrowth movement that is going on. So if we roll things back to the way things used to be, how many people are going to be happy? Well, they claim that you'll be happy, you'll love it, and you won't own anything. You may be temporarily happy, or maybe you're happy because you're drugged, or maybe you're happy because you just live in the metaverse. But I contend you won't be happy generationally, because the only way to change your station is the American way, which, happened in 1776 and changed the world. It was the only place you could go and succeed if you weren't from a family of farmers. Before, you couldn't succeed if you were a farmer. You couldn't own the farm, then own the plant and everything else. You stayed in your station. And that's the way it was always. And the only reason why our parents and grandparents got better is because they could own something. They could own land. They could own property. They could own stock. And those things grew over time. And they could change their station. They didn't, once poor, you didn't have to stay poor. Well, now we're planning on degrowth. Now, let me just ask you, what was the biggest problem with the coronavirus? Who was hurt the most? 7 million people died. Yes. Then who was hurt the most? I would say it was the small business. I would say that it was the American way of life, and that is not being told by the federal government what you must and must not do. And I would say the supply chain. We will never get the supply chain back. There's no way to restart it the way it was. We'll never get it back. And what we had was damn near perfect. It was a pipe dream, I think, in the long run, because they didn't consider disruptions, just like the banks. We're not considering economic collapse. The Central Reserve, they're saying, oh, no, the dollar's not going anywhere. No one will plan for catastrophic collapse. And so they didn't. And there was catastrophic collapse. I believe that was mainly engineered. So that supply chain stopped, and it taught us something very valuable. Go local. Why aren't we making more steel today? Why aren't we making the thing? Why isn't Ford, when they can't get a part from overseas, why are they just waiting instead of saying, you know what, it's just time to go back to making it ourselves? Because they believe that that's coming back? Because that's not coming back. That's not coming back. Why is it everything is being dismantled? We're dismantling our energy without replacing it with whatever magic dust we are supposed to have by now. We're destroying everything. I'm going to tomorrow ask James Lindsay to be a part of the program, because he just tweeted out something over the weekend. Degrowth equals neo-communism, and they're pushing it right now. And he had a cover of Monthly Review, the independent socialist magazine, and it has stories in it: planned degrowth, eco-socialism, and sustainable human development, the eco-socialist mode of cooperation on technology and degrowth, democratic planning for degrowth, 9 thesis on eco-socialist degrowth. The degrowth is what's happening to us right now. That is truly what is happening. And that is intentional. If you couldn't bring the rest of the world up to American standards, what you need to do is bring America down and the West down to everybody else's standard. And if you happen to believe that the West stole everything they have, then it only makes sense that you would want to take their wealth, punish them, because there is no forgiveness in this religion, punish them, and take their money and give it to other countries. Now, while we're all realizing that the system is broken, While we all know that 19 out of the 21 pharmaceuticals that we get, the main ingredients that we get, are no longer had in America. They're Chinese. That I think it's about 80% of all pharmaceuticals come from overseas. Why isn't Pfizer, why aren't these big American behemoths making new factories here? How come? That would seem logical to me. Why aren't we talking about a national movement to reopen steel mills when most of our steel comes from overseas? Why? Because they are not planning on any growth. Their target is 2 to 3% inflation. 3% inflation. If you have 3% inflation over 10 years, your dollar loses 40% of its value. Wait, in 10 years, everything I've saved loses almost 50% of its value? It's like 38 cents on every dollar? Are you kidding me? And that's acceptable to us? No, they're just counting on you not knowing. Ford reported in March they were going to lose $3 billion on electric cars in 2023. They're now saying it's $4.5 billion they're going to lose. I'm going to talk about this later this week. But why would you do that? As a country, as a company, why would you continue to up the ante when your division is losing $4.5 billion? And it appears as though their goal of 2 million annual cars is not going to be reached. In fact, the sales numbers are going down. EV sales for Ford dropped 2.8 for the quarter. Its Mustang went down 21.1%. Its E-Transit electric van went down 23.8%. 25%. Any reasonable capitalist cuts their losses and says, no. We're not expanding this business. Now, while that is happening, nobody's buying these things. They're wildly expensive. They're more dangerous. And we know for a fact we don't have the power grid to supply energy to all of these cars. Connecticut announces that they're joining Rhode Island, Maryland, New Jersey, and New Mexico to adopt tough rules to ban the sale of fossil fuel-powered vehicles by 2035. So you won't be able to buy anything but an electric vehicle by 2035. What? Is that in the people's best interest? Or is that how you get the ZIL from the former Soviet Union? You're making cars that no one wants, but you force people to buy them. You know, I said, I think it was in January, the first year, we were just finding out about it. It was the end of January. I had heard about this pandemic in China in December. We started talking about it January 1st, and by the end of January, I said, don't fear the virus. Don't fear the virus. Fear the effects of this virus and not life and death. I think that will be the smallest casualty. Turns out, I think that might be true. When we were told billions would die, hundreds of millions would die. No, that wasn't true. Billions did not die. But the thing that keeps so many people alive was shut down. And now, before it even can come back, they're talking about doing more damage to it. When you read the book Dark Future, there is no other conclusion that you can come to other than you are not important to the global elite. If we really would learn our lesson, we all know, the solution is deglobalization, okay? But they're not deglobalizing. They say they're deglobalizing, but they're not. They're just making sure that every single community answers to a global government. So a bigger global machine is going to control, and it's going to control all of the big financial firms, all of the big corporations, and it will make sure that you cannot do the things that would keep your local community safe. You don't believe me? Read Dark Future. Or if you want to have a lighter look at it, still the same information, but I mean, I had to make it funny. Dark Future, the audio version, both available wherever you buy your books, or if you're going to buy a hard copy, may I suggest you try bookshop.org. Bookshop.org is how you can buy this book locally through people who own their own bookstores. Bookshop.org.